Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from, and who rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom. So, today's lesson, today's topic that I want to get into is how the kingdom of heaven, or how to get to the kingdom of heaven. You're going to have to walk that straight and narrow path, because ultimately, receiving salvation, gain the kingdom of heaven on the first go around, it's not going to be an easy walk, because when you come into this truth, you learn that you're an Israelite, you try to wake up your family members, your friends that you used to have in the world, and pretty much, everybody, you try to tell them about the truth, but they're rejected, because ultimately not everybody's meant to walk that straight and narrow path. Only a select few are going to be chosen to walk that straight and narrow path that leads to salvation, that leads to the kingdom of heaven on the first go around, because eventually, all of the nation of Israel, is going to be brought in to the kingdom of heaven, but only 1/3 is going to receive it on the first go around, starting with the 144,000 and that large multitude, the rest of the 1/3, because broad is the way that lead to destruction, But I'm going to get this first scripture. This is Matthew chapter 7 and verse 13. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go thereat. Verse 14, because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Yeah, so you're gonna have to go into that straight gate, that narrow path, that word straight goes into the difficulty, because ultimately when you come into this truth, you start catching more hell than you were already catching in the world. You gotta suffer humiliation, getting fired from jobs, losing, catching financial losses, left and right, losing certain family members, losing women, maybe catching, certain infirmities that you didn't used to have, but now you have it. This is all part of that straight gate. You gotta go through that to get that kingdom of heaven on the first go around, that salvation, because the broad way, is going to lead to destruction, being comfortable here, always comforting the flesh, that all leads to death. Like a lot of our people are going to take that broad way that leads to destruction. When the MOTB comes to pass, our people are going to lift up their sleeve and take it, thinking that they're going to save themselves, but ultimately it's a snare and a trap. So I'm going to get this next one. This is Acts chapter 14 and verse 22. And it reads, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we must, through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of the Most High. Yeah, so you're going to have to go through a lot of tribulation, trials and tribulations, constantly catch hell to receive salvation, because it's not going to be easy walk when you come into this truth. It's going to be a straight and narrow path, a path of difficulty. You're going to have to suffer all these things to be able to, get delivered. Starting with the 144,000 and the rest, the 1/3, that large multitude, those members of the hopeful elect are going to be walking that straight and narrow path. So I'm going to get this next one. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 7 and verse 6. There is also another thing, a city is builded and set up on a broad field, and it is full of all good things. And that city, that's the kingdom of heaven, because ultimately when the kingdom of heaven gets established, there's not going to be any more sin, for the nation of Israel, having those new bodies, finally having that immortality, never going off. We're going to have, clean air, clean water, clean food, not all these things that we currently have under Esau, everything's defiled here. Verse 8, and only one path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could but one man go there at once. Verse 9. Oh, Salaki, I skipped a verse. This is verse 7. The entrance thereof is narrow and set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if there were a fire on the right hand and on the left a deep water. Yeah, so that's describing how straight and narrow this path is. It's very narrow. You can't stumble, because if you stumble, you're gonna fall into that fire at the right hand or that deep water on the left. It's just describing it and visualizing how straight and narrow this path is. Verse 8, and one only path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could but one man go there at once. Yeah, so only one person at a time can walk through that path, because ultimately you have to work your own salvation with fear and trembling. Verse 9, if this city now were given unto a man for an inheritance, and if he never shall pass the danger set before it, how shall he receive the inheritance? Yeah, so you're gonna have to go through that path, that straight and narrow path to get to that city, which is the kingdom of heaven. Because only the 144,000, which is going to be the governing body, and the rest of that 1/3, those are the ones that are going to get it on the first go around, for going through that straight and narrow path. But the rest of the nation of Israel, the 2/3, they didn't walk that straight and narrow path. They chose the broad way, which ultimately, got them to either, get put to death before the ICBMs came over here and suffered that second death, which is the lake of fire, those ICBM thermonuclear missiles. I'm going to get this next precept. This is Sirach chapter 2 and verse 1. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. So you're going to have to go through temptation when you come to this truth, and that's part of the straight and narrow path, constantly going through temptations that, you used to go through in the world, but now, you have to go through them as well, when you come into this truth, but now that you have this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, to stay away from those temptations, because ultimately, sin and iniquity leads to death, but following the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of your ability, using wisdom, using the fear of the Lord, that leads to life. Verse 2, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. So constantly enduring, all the hell that you're going to get thrown at you, all the temptations, because ultimately you're going to have to endure till the end. Verse 3, cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. So cleaving on to this word, this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, it's going to lead to everlasting life, lead to being delivered, out of this place. Verse 4, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a low state. So whatever is brought upon you, whatever hell you're catching, take it cheerfully, because that ultimately means the Lord is dealing with you, because you might be doing every single thing right, but that hell is still going to catch. That hell is still going to come, you're still going to have to catch. Verse 5, for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity, so that that adversity, you're going to have to deal with it, because ultimately you're going to have to be purged from all the impurities. That's why we're constantly being put in that fire to make us more in the image of Yahweh Shai. So whenever that adversity comes, now you know the wisdom to use and, applying the scriptures. Because ultimately the hopeful elect are currently going through that refining period right now. So we could be made, in the image of Yahweh Shai. So when he cracks the clouds, he's gonna deliver his elect. But the rest of the nation of Israel is gonna get destroyed. So I'm gonna get this last one. This is Romans chapter 8 and verse 18. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Yeah, so whatever, afflictions, trials and tribulations, temptations that we're currently going through, that's part of the straight and narrow path. But eventually, you got to have your eyes single. You got to have that tunnel vision, because what's at the end of the straight and narrow path, which is the kingdom of heaven. Being delivered. Having rulership over the heathens. Being part of that governing body. The 144,000. But that's pretty much it. The point. You gotta constantly, walk that straight and narrow path. Stay on that path. Stay away from the Broadway. Because that Broadway leads to destruction. But I pray that this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Kakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from and who rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom.